The increase in life expectancy in the UK has stalled in recent years, and the slowdown is one of the worst of the world's leading economies. The Office for National Statistics says women have been particularly badly hit. Between 2005 and 2010, the increase in life expectancy per year was 12.9 weeks for women and 17.3 weeks for men. But the next 6 years saw those figures fall to 1.2 weeks for women and 4.2 weeks for men. Our health editor Hugh Pym has been looking at the data.
We're living longer, but the speed at which lifespans increase in each generation is slowing. That's the main message of a new report which looks at life expectancy across a range of wealthy nations. Medical advances have helped more people to live longer with healthier lives and enjoy their retirement years. But one of the biggest slowdowns in the rate of increase has been in the UK.
I think there's too many fast foods that people eat now. We always had just plain meat and veg meals.
Obesity, diabetes is a big problem in this country at the moment, and possibly lack of exercise.
I'm very surprised actually, yes. I thought in this generation people are starting to live longer.
So what do the figures actually show? Well, male and female life expectancy at birth rose consistently in the UK from the early 1980s through until 2011. But from then, the rate of increase slowed right down, in effect stalling at just over 79 for men and just under 83 for women. So how does that compare with other countries? Here's the trend for female life expectancy at birth from 2000 to 2016. First for the UK, which started in the middle of the pack. Here's the Czech Republic, which has nearly caught up from a lower start. Japan and Spain are among those pulling away from the UK. So is there a UK factor which might explain this? Some argue it's partly down to austerity policies, including cuts in social care in England.
When you cut services, when you cut adult social workers coming and checking on old people, when you cut Meals on Wheels, when you cut rural bus services, when you cut the NHS, then it has an effect on health.
Others argue more research is needed on people's lifestyles and general health issues.
I think it's far too simplistic to blame austerity for these changes in our longevity. I think we have to look more widely. We have to look at the way we live our lives, our lifestyle, the way we've become more obese as a society, the way we eat unhealthy food. We also need to look at wider issues like our housing, our public health, our immunisation.
There are differing views on what's happening with life expectancy, but most would agree a deeper debate is needed on why the UK seems to be moving against the tide running in many other economies. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
We can discuss this further because I'm joined by the former Pensions Minister, Sir Steve Webb, who's now Director of Policy at Royal London. What do you make of these figures?
I see statistics every day, and these ones genuinely shocked me. And just to think about what we've just heard, a baby girl being born, every year we thought she'd live another 3 months, another 3 months, another 3 months. Now that's a week. That's the scale of what's changed. And if it was happening everywhere in the world, we'd say, well, there's something going on globally. But actually, we've gone out of kilter with most of the rest of the developed world. And that's quite striking. So we've got to ask ourselves, what's happening in the UK specifically?
And this after a period, as I understand it, when the UK was doing quite a lot better than the rest.
That's right. In the 6 years up to 2010, the UK was seeing quite significant advances, as we did in the previous century. You know, we just got used to the idea that we're going to go on living longer and longer and longer. So for this virtually to grind to a halt is very dramatic. And it's not just 1 year. It's not just a bad winter, a hot summer, a dodgy flu vaccine. You know, it's 6 years worth of things slowing down.
How do we best find out why?
Some of it we won't know for a while because these things, you know, we're guessing actually. How long we're going to live at birth, a baby born today, is speculation for 80, 90 years down the track. So we won't know for sure for a while. But we should look at things like, in that piece from Hugh Pym, you just heard about things like social care spending. I have a strong suspicion that the fact that it's much, much harder now to get into a care home, so there are more older people living on their own, probably not properly cared for. I think that's part of the story. But we, you know, that's my hunch. But what we need is government because it's nobody's job in government to solve this. The health does a bit and social care does a bit, benefits do a bit, but somebody in government needs to grasp this and really find out why.
Well, I wondered about that because I was talking to a guest from the National Statistics Office at an hour ago, and I asked specifically, whose desk does this report land on? And the problem, presumably, is that it lands potentially on lots of desks.
Which means nobody, in effect. Nobody is held to account for this. And I think the NHS is only ever part of this story. Actually, how we live our lives, how we care for people who aren't in the healthcare. Actually, government needs to join all these bits together, and at the moment, it's not on the agenda.
Lifestyle habits are still part of this as well, presumably.
They are, and many of those have been going in the right direction. The sorts of jobs we do have got better, much less heavy manufacturing, heavy industry, that's helped. But then you hear about things like obesity, if our children are less active than we are. All these things could put into reverse something that's been going on for a century, and that really would be quite staggering.
And presumably when we look at this list, and it's 20 countries in total, you can look at the ones that are doing a lot better and say, well, what can we learn from them?
And countries in Scandinavia who were doing as well as we were 6 years ago did much better in the following 6 years. So it can't just be about the economic crash and countries having to adapt. It might be about how we adapted to it. Did we cut spending whereas they raised taxes? And that has a different impact. So the fact we're looking at other countries is very important. Japan offers us some encouragement today because Japan had a very slow period and has now bounced back. So it shows it can be done. It doesn't have to be permanent.
And the United States running roughly in parallel with us over the last 6 years, or this 2010 to 2016 period.
Pretty near the bottom of the league table for men in particular. And to be honest, anything to do with health where we're near the United States in a league table is not a place I would want to be.
Although spending policies in the US at that point would have been different to an extent, wouldn't they?
They would, which is why there isn't just a single answer to this. But what we do know is the gap between rich and poor in the UK was narrowing in terms of healthy life expectancy. That has now gone into reverse, which suggests austerity is probably part of the story.
OK. Thank you very much for those thoughts, Sir Steve Webb, former